So once you have a clear understanding of who's behind each one of these pillars of the organized crime, well, then you have the possibility of using the tools that are available for the US, for Europe. Sanctions is one of them. And I think the way forward, what you ask, is that there needs to be the buildup of pressure from within and pressure coming from outside. And creating that moment of internal and external pressure is the best moment that you can create for a positive outcome for negotiations.
Bingo, he let the cat out of the bag by mentioning negotiations. That part is true, and I do agree with that on the surface, but again, he's not being upfront about what his political faction has been up to for years. The Vichy opposition's go-to strategy has not been to fight the regime, but to negotiate to coexist and to share a little bit of the regime's power. The opposition has had a whole series of failed dialogues with the regime since Capriles cried uncle in the 2013 elections and conceded to Maduro despite credible allegations of electoral fraud by the PSUV. The regime only ever negotiates when it needs to buy time for its own survival. Then they drag the dialogue out, they get concessions out of the opposition, and they barely give up anything in return, if they give up anything at all. And Lopez knows that the US is starting to phase out sanctions on the regime so American oil companies can get that Venezuelan oil again. He also knows that members of his own party in the interim government have been actively lobbying the US to lift sanctions so that the regime comes back to the dialogue table, which it abandoned after it got what it wanted in Mexico City: a few token opposition candidates to be useful idiots in a rigged election where Chavismo gave itself 20 out of 24 governorships, and forced the new opposition governors to recognize Maduro as president and not Guaido. And what will the opposition negotiate with the regime at the next dialogue, whenever that may be? Releasing the political prisoners being tortured at the helicoid? No. Restoring private property to the millions of Venezuelans whose houses were taken over by the regime while they were abroad looking for work, and then given out to regime loyalists? No. Allowing a couple of large humanitarian aid convoys into Caracas and allowing NGOs to distribute food and medicine without regime interference? No, not even. They'll be negotiating which opposition candidates and how many of them the regime will allow on the 2024 ballot.